Well, let's see how broke I am. Pretty broke. Linda and my brother Chris and I just got back. I will explain all that, but I'm going to start at the beginning. Okay. Mom, here's the news on my son Nicholas. He had to have the toe next to his big toe on his right leg amputated. It had infection in the bone, and so they cut the bone out. He said it hurts, but it's a relief compared to what it used to be like. And I don't know how long they're going to keep him in the hospital. I went over to see him this morning, and no sooner got there and sat down to visit with him, I get a phone call from my youngest son, Christopher, he needed help. His wife's car was broke down. So, I left the hospital. I was in my van and drove back over to where he was, loaded him, Benjamin's 2 children, and Chris's 3 little boys in my van, and we drove over to Roff, R-O-F-F, and Chris bought some oil for his wife's car and some gas treatment, and we drove back to the car. They loaded it up, and Benjamin and all 5 kids, well, no, Benjamin went with Chris. It was Walter sitting in the front passenger seat and the other 4 children sitting in the back. I'm going to have to get a certificate, find one and print it off that says Walter Lee, Fly Assassin. Because when I parked at it's a gas station that you just use cards, there's no attendant. And while I parked there under the awning, I opened the windows, and about 1,000,000,001 flies flew into my van. And we shooed out as many as we could, but I told Walter, now listen, you're the designated fly assassin. You take this hat right here and you whack those flies. And he killed a bunch. And he said, I said, don't damage my hat. It's older than you are. And he said, well, how old is it, Papa? And I said, about 35 years old. About 35 years ago that I bought it. Let me get a sip. Anyway, we drove and we left Tiffany's car parked in the parking lot, and he said, you're done, Pappas. You just go on. You're done for the day. He's supposed to come over and mow the grass here tomorrow. but he had a vehicular emergency. Anyway, so I came on home. Aurora, Cheyenne, and Ashton were waiting on their mother to come get them. They were going to go out with her and do stuff. Brandon was at work, and I asked Linda and Chris, I said, I have to go to Walmart. I've got to put money on my burner card. Do y'all want to go with me? Yeah, we want to go. So I took them to eat at San Pedro Mexican restaurant, and we went to Walmart, and fortunately there were some electric carts. It's always helpful if you pray that Father will help make something happen for you, and He usually does. So there were a couple of electric carts there, go-karts I call them, and we did a little shopping. After putting money on my burner card, I bought a gallon of, it kills poison ivy. You spray it and we got a bumper crop. I'm not going to do it today. I'll do it tomorrow when we get home from church. Well, actually, here's the game plan. Linda and I are going to church. I'm going to see if Benjamin will get his kids cleaned up and Phil get cleaned up, and they go with us. Then we come back here, and then Linda and I are going over to see my son Nicholas at the hospital. Then we come back from there, and I will go out and spray poison ivy. And she said, well, goats, I said, your goats aren't going to be where we're spraying, sugar. She worries about her sheep and goats a lot, and I understand that. She's Ellie Mae Clampett on steroids. She's the critter lady. But we'll get all that killed out. And then driving home, I went to a place over at Lake of the Arbuckles after we left Walmart, and I showed Linda and my brother Chris a place where Charles Hallmark and I used to go research Sasquatch, and we were casting some prints at the end at this deal, this campground, and we hear a just revving up, and we're down at the edge, and we're and you got to remember, this is like, probably 40 years ago, something like that, 35 years ago. Might have been 30 years ago, I don't know. I owned a bunch of houses. We owned a bunch of houses in Sulphur, and we were living in the biggest one at the time. But hear this motor just booming and coming, and suddenly we hear two guys screaming, and they miss the curve, and they shoot right up into the air and came down right between Chuck and me where we were casting Sasquatch footprints. And then they ended up in the lake, and I looked at Chuck, and he said, no, we're not getting wet. I've got a cell phone. So he called what Linda calls tree frogs, park rangers. They came. The guys went to jail, and they pulled the pickup out of the water. But I thought that'd be fun to show Linda and Chris where some of my adventures took place. And then after that, we took the long way home. We drove through Darty. We took K-Stark Trail. Then we turned back to the cabins Jerry owns that Matt runs, and came around that way so Linda could see her goats. And the baby donkey that Matt has is getting huge. But anyway, then we came home, and I had to come out here and balance a checkbook. And I thought while I was doing that, I would go ahead and give a heads up to everybody. Nick's going to be fine. He's going to be off work for 3 weeks. When he was 20 years old, 19 or 20, he accidentally shot himself through the hand and through the leg and down there, and he's got drop foot on that side. But anyway, in case anybody wonders, this crazy old man loves you. I do. I've got to go in. I'll be showering later and finding some clean overalls and a clean shirt and a clean hat and socks and underwear and everything. Speaking of underwear, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but if I can't poke fun at myself, who can I poke fun at? Went over to the hospital to see Nick, and I needed to urinate really bad. So I had to walk down to the elevators back around, and before I got there, I went into the men's room, and I was at the urinal, and I was trying, and I couldn't find the fly on my underwear. So I've tried and I tried, and so I thought this isn't good. So I went inside a stall, took all my implements of destruction out of my pockets, took my overalls off, and looked, and sure enough, this morning when I got up, I'd put my underwear on backwards. I've been known to do such before, but that was particularly embarrassing. So went ahead and did my business and got my underwear on right side out, put my socks in my boots. Well, actually, I didn't ever take my socks off. Overalls, socks, or overalls, and boots back on. And then I went on up to see my son. They found out that Nicholas is type 2 diabetic, and they gave him 4 shots of insulin. They've got him on some antibiotics on steroids. In other words, really fluorofloxacin or something like that. I mean, they're pumping it to him. Don't know how long he's going to be in the hospital, but he won't be out before I get out of church, and if he is, he'll just have to wait, and then we'll come get him. But I think it'll be Monday or Tuesday before he gets to come home. And so that's how my day went. I'm getting ready at 6:30 in the evening, and I'm getting ready to go ahead and I'm going to upload this, and I go inside and get into some much lighter clothes. Let me tell you something. Heaviest handgun I got right there, but it takes up less space than my 357. The one that takes up the least amount of space is my what I call stubby, but it's dead on accurate, but it's hard reloading the thing, unloading and reloading. There's no shell ejector for it. Well, anyway, don't forget, this old crazy man here loves you with my whole heart. I do. I want you to thank God for your blessings, because you are blessed. And like the sign up there says, be kind. Always be kind. Bye.